All right, this is Ubaid on behalf of V Electronics, and in this video, we'll be talking about the relative wage cuts argument. So, this is relative wage cut argument. Now, when it comes to your relative wage cut argument, this has to do with a reduction of wages of employees in a economic downturn. So, in an economic downturn, so let's say because of some reason, okay, because of or whatever reason you may have, any one of the economic factors that we talked about in the past, okay, the real GDP of a country goes down. Okay, so the real GDP of a country goes down. Now, this could be because of the raise in the prices of crude oil. This could be because of the raise in the prices of gasoline. Okay, as a result of which you have many companies, many businesses that take a hit. Okay, as a result of which the overall real GDP goes down because obviously the production slows down. The production slows down and the employment output slows down. So employment output, which has to do with production, slows down. Okay, and this may be visible not just in a company that deals with merchandise, import and export, but also companies that deal with services. Because if the overall production of merchandise goes down, if the overall consumption of merchandise goes down, obviously the services will take a hit as well. Okay, services such as technical support, customer service, so on and so forth. All right, so in an economy which is shrinking rather than growing, okay, what's going to end up happening is, okay, hypothetically speaking, employees may accept lower wages. Okay, so employees over here, they may accept lower wages, assuming this is your demand, supply rather, excuse me, supply, and this is your demand, and this is your equilibrium, okay, for wages. All right, so the employees may be willing to accept lower wages, but at the same time, okay, the employees may say, hey, listen, okay, it's possible that my coworker or an employee who is working in another retail location or distribution center in a decentralized system may not experience the same kind of wage cut. As a result of which, I may be worse off, not just in terms of wages, but also in terms of my position relative to my peer. Okay, relative to the worker who's working the same job, doing the same thing as this person, working in the same department. Okay, so as a result of which, they might stand up against wage cuts. And one way to do this would be through a labor union. Okay, if an employee, such as an insider employee, has been with the company for a long time, and let's say they're with a labor union, the labor union may bargain for their rights and their wages. Now, in that case, what's going to end up happening is, okay, the wage will experience something called wage stickiness. Okay, because we know that this is your equilibrium point over here for wages. And if the employees are not willing to accept the wage cut, okay, your wages will stay the same. Okay, however, production or supply of merchandise or services may go down. So the quantity produced may go down. So let me draw another graph to understand how this works. So this one over here, let's say this is your equilibrium, and this has to do with quantity produced. Okay, and let's assume that we have wages over here. Okay, at this point, okay, at this wage, okay, the employees and the employers both agree, okay, to produce a certain quantity. Okay, and they both agree to work at this wage. The employers are willing to um, offer the employees this wage, and the employees are willing to accept that offer, as a result of which the employees are willing to work for the employer at this wage to produce a certain quantity based on the um, the total number of employees in the workforce. All right, now for some reason, okay, let's assume that the real GDP goes down because of an economic factor, as a result of which the supply or the quantity of production goes down. This has to do with production. Okay, so this could be a merchandise, it could be a good, it could be a product, or it could be service. Okay, so let's say this has to do with production, and let's assume that this becomes your Q1. This is your Q0. However, when Q0 becomes Q1, we know that the production goes down, as a result of which the employer is making less in profit, in revenue as well. Okay, as a result of which the employer would be looking forward to cut down, okay, wages and other operating expenses. Okay, however, because of things such as labor unions, contracts, so on and so forth, okay, the employee may be able to resist those wage cuts, especially because of this theory over here. All right, so in that case, what's going to end up happening is the W will not go down to W1. Instead, it will stay at W0. If it stays at W0 at the equilibrium wage and the quantity of production goes down, what's going to end up happening is the employer will suffer a loss, okay, because obviously their operating expenses are too high. Okay, so that's basically it when it comes to this theory over here. On behalf of V Electronics, this is Ubaid. Have yourself a great day.